Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and if you've watched my last video, you know I was complaining about the light. Fires going on, a lot of ash in the air. Sunlight tends to be orange on this time of year. But ignoring that, today we're doing almost a part 2 of a video. Now, last month I talked about all the books that I want to reread in the future that I love so much, I feel like I need to enjoy them again. This time, part 2, a little bit different. We're talking about all the books I gave up on finishing. I didn't finish, DNF'd them, and I feel like I should give them a second chance. Now, all of these I DNF'd fairly quickly. Like, I didn't give them a fair chance. I didn't even get halfway through. I don't even know if I got to 100 pages in a couple of these because I was listening to an audiobook. I gave up on them, and I want to see if that was the right decision. Maybe, maybe not. So with that all being said, let's just dive on in. The first book that I gave up on that I really do want to give a second chance is Red Seas Under Red Skies. So this is book 2 in the Lies of Locke and Laura series. Our main character opens up with him lashing out, him grieving, him not being able to process his own mental health and his own mental anything. He just doesn't want to exist at the moment. And I don't really feel like it was a very good depiction of what was going on. It was honest, but it wasn't healthy, and I shouldn't fault that. That's an understandable reaction to the consequences of what is going on, but I wasn't in the mood to read it, and some of really good friends absolutely loved that series, and they assured me, book 2 is amazing. You don't have to read book 3, but you have to read book 2, and I'm like, fine. I enjoy a good pirate aesthetic. We can read book 2, and so I DNF'd it the first time because I didn't like the way it was depicting mental health in the beginning, and the way it's oh, I'm gonna snap you out of it, and I'm like, it wasn't very good in my mind, and so I want to see if what I enjoyed about book 1 carries through to book 2 once we deal with this whole drama moment. I don't want to call it that, but that's what it felt like. Again, so this book is a sequel, so I can't really talk about too much what it is, and also I DNF'd it, so I don't really know what it's about, so yeah. The next book I DNF'd that I plan on picking up again is Fifth Season. So Fifth Season is a world where every 100 years or so there's this huge earthquake that basically destroys all civilizations. And people are so used to this at this point that their goal is to build cities that will last through these earthquakes. They haven't really figured that out yet, but it is their ultimate goal to survive these earthquakes. And we follow a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different perspectives. And the reason why I DNF'd this was 2 reasons. First of all, I didn't really like the way it was taking on religion in this book, and the other reason was that a perspective was in second person. It always referred to the main character as, you did this, you did that, and I understand that because, again, this is a grieving person. I don't have too much fault against grieving people. I actually enjoyed the way that this was represented. However, the narrative was really bothering me, and again, I didn't like the way that this had a take on religion, and certain people with the power to, do magic in this world were being discriminated against, and I wasn't in the place to read this at the moment, and I want to pick it up again. However, I am currently in a high earthquake risk zone, and I'm not sure reading a book about the apocalypse coming because of earthquakes is a good idea for my mental health. So once I move in the future, whenever that may be, I'm always moving, so I always just assume it's going to happen in the future. It hasn't yet, but maybe one day I'll pick this up again. I have no clue when, I don't know, but I'm interested. For the next book, I know when I'm going to pick this up again, or at least I have a plan to pick it up again, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale. So this is a Russian-inspired winter fantasy, and I really want to pick it up when it's decently cold outside, because right now I'm sweating, and I'm I don't want to read a book about people freezing. It's oh, it's so cold, and there's literally a personification of winter in this book, and I'm I would like a little bit of that, please, just a bit. This book also has a take on religion that I'm just not comfortable with. I'm tired of people saying, oh, it's organized religion, it must be evil. I'm it's not always evil. There's some good out there in the world. It's just, you don't always have to portray it as the bad guy. It's a little annoying. So in this story, our main character is she's betrothed to some winter spirit or whatever, and through the process she has to continue to save the spirits of her area because her new stepmother has come in and decided to get rid of all of the more or less pagan beliefs and get rid of all the superstition. No one's allowed to worship the old beliefs anymore. It has to be this new westernized Christian religion, and she hates anyone who says otherwise. And like I said before, I'm tired of organized religion being the bad guy here. It's not always the bad guy. So, again, I DNF'd this because I was reading it in the middle of summer. It's also the 5th book in a row that had that nasty take on religion, and I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. But I've heard this book is amazing, and if you stick through it, you'll have a great reward, at the end of book 3. So I'm interested. I know it's supposed to be really good. I want to see if I can actually do it. And maybe, maybe not. Next book I plan on picking up that I DNF'd in the past is The Thief. So I didn't like this book because the main prospective character is so arrogant and so in his head. He is like locked in a prison for such a long amount of time, and like when they finally need him and he's let go to do something, he's in his head, it's like, oh, I could have escaped. Oh, I was so close to freeing myself. I was the best. I should have been able to do that. And like it's all in his head. It's all hyping himself up, and he's so arrogant and annoying. And I have so many friends who like enjoy this book so much, and they assure me it gets better, but I couldn't understand, unless he got like a huge reality check, which living in a prison for like 5 years, I don't know how that's not a reality check for you. So I want to enjoy this book. I heard really good things about this book. I love Thieves' stories. I didn't like the prospective characters, and if you're in his head the entire time, I feel like I need to like you at least a little bit. So obviously, as you can tell so far, I haven't actually held up any of these books. I don't own any of them, and I DNF a lot of the books because I get a lot of my books from the library. I can just get them for free and return them whenever I get bored with them. And that's not entirely the case with this next book, and that is The Hazelwood. So The Hazelwood is a book I DNF'd because I didn't like the way that it felt very early 2000s YA, and I thought this was like a new release book, or at least like 2017 release. When was this released? Okay, no, this was released January 2018, so I was fairly close. But I'm like, just the way the opening chapters were written, it was very early 2000s. It was very like this perspective, and it's like, oh, this creepy guy, and it's like, he might be my dad, but he also might not be, and I'm like, it was very weird setup for what this book is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about this person inheriting this land that their grandmother had that they passed away, and for some reason the grandmother and the mother never had a good relationship. They never were connected, and so the mother and the daughter lived in their own separate area, but when the grandma passed away, they now have this land and they have to take care of it. And it's like magical and spoopy and almost like grim fairy tale inspired, I believe. And I didn't like how it opened up with like this like girl wondering if this stranger who's stalking her is her dad. Like I didn't feel like that had a connection. It maybe very well could, but I didn't see it. It felt very weird. It wasn't the tone of a book I was expecting, and the first chapter is very important, and failing on the first chapter, it doesn't bode very well for the rest of the book. So I still have this. I still want to read it, because I don't want to like just get rid of it because I didn't like chapter 1. I should at least read up to chapter 5. I should like at least do that. And finally, the last book I DNF'd, which I just didn't give a fair chance to. Looking back, I totally could have loved this, but I didn't. And that is The Dragon Pearl. This is a Rick Riordan Presents book, but unlike literally all of the other Rick Riordan Presents books, this is a sci-fi. So this book is, I believe, Korean inspired, and that is a story like set in space where it's like our main character is half fox spirit, something to do with like space travel and like spaceships and like flying and stuff, or maybe, I don't really know too much, dragon pearls involved, half fox spirit. That sounds really interesting. And I love Rick Riordan Presents books. Like, I haven't had a fault with any of them so far. I went into this expecting something like the rest of the books, which is on our Earth, urban fantasy, middle grade kind of feeling, except this was sci-fi. And I'm like, this wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't feeling it at the time. I didn't want a sci-fi book, so I DNF'd it simply because of the genre, which is wrong because I actually really like sci-fi. I just wasn't feeling it at the time. So yeah, I totally plan on picking this up again. I should have looked at the cover and realized that it was not urban fantasy. I should have realized it was sci-fi because it's so obvious looking at the cover. I don't know what I was thinking. Also, I feel like I'll enjoy this book. I really do. It wasn't the time for me. Maybe it will be soon because I have been reading more of Rick Riordan Presents books, and I need to complete the set somehow. So that has been all the books I have DNF'd recently that I do want to give a second chance. I do want to at least attempt to get through them. At the very least, I need to figure out if I want to keep The Hazelwood or not. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you like this video, have any recommendations on which books I should push up to the front of my priority list, please leave that down in the comment section down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And as always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.